We are recording this webinar today because we will provide it on our website for our members to access later, because I think we're going to get some really good information here today, which might be good to go back and look at, you know, the presentation and especially the PowerPoints that our guests are going to share today. So thank you everyone who has joined us today for our Cutting Red Tape webinar, where we're going to talk about regulatory compliance and financial support opportunities for small businesses. As I think all of our members know, the vast majority of trucking companies are small businesses. I think the number is 97%. With the idea that the state recognizes that most of these companies that are small businesses don't have all the resources that the larger businesses do to devote to environmental compliance, there are several programs that the state has set up and provides to help small businesses with regulatory compliance in the environmental area. So we're going to talk about those things today because Jeremy and Samantha and I all serve on a committee at DEP, and I get to hear about the work that they do a lot. And I thought it might be very helpful for our members to hear about some of the work that EMAP does and that Samantha's office does with the Small Business Ombudsman. So that's why we're here today, to hear about what they do for Pennsylvania's small businesses. And they're even going to tell us, I know some people are confused about what is a small business. So they're going to even explain that to us today, and you'll see why the vast majority of trucking companies are actually small businesses. So with that said, I just want to introduce our guests. I'm excited to have them both here today. First up will be Samantha Harmon, who is the Small Business Ombudsman at the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. We appreciate her taking the time to be with us here today. She's going to discuss how the Department of Environmental Protection works confidentially with small businesses on regulatory assistance that helps them comply. And then she's also going to talk about some of the technical and financial opportunities that DEP has available for businesses, including grants and loans that the office makes available for certain projects that many of our members may avail themselves of. So she's going to talk about that and how her business may, you know, intersect with the trucking industry specifically. So looking forward to that. And then we're also lucky today to have Jeremy Hancher, who is the program manager for the state's Environmental Management Assistance Program. And he is going to provide an overview of EMAP's confidential no-cost services that they provide specifically to Pennsylvania small businesses to help them with regulatory compliance in environmental areas. So EMAP, he's going to tell us about EMAP. It's an award-winning program that provides one-on-one environmental compliance services. So that includes permit applications and plans. He's going to tell us all about the services they provide with on-site assessments and alternative processes, and helping small businesses comply with regulatory requirements. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Samantha, first of all. So Samantha, if you wouldn't mind sharing your presentation, we're happy to have you here. Thank you.
All right, can everybody see my screen? You're muted, Rebecca.
Sorry, we also see the next slide coming up. So that's okay, if as long as it's okay with you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Sorry for, I think I can switch them, but there we go. That should work.
There we go, perfect.
All right. Well, thank you, Rebecca. So good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to say thank you to the Pennsylvania Motor Truck Association for hosting this webinar and inviting me to speak. My name is Samantha Harmon, and I am the Small Business Ombudsman for the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. I have a lot of information to share with you regarding what the SBO is, as well as the funding opportunities through the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, specifically for small businesses, and some that just might be applicable to your industry more generally. So with that, we're going to jump right into the presentation. Okay, small businesses are defined in different ways by different entities. For DEP, under air quality regulations, the definition is fewer than 100 full-time equivalent employees. So that does count full-time and part-time employees. Under the federal regulations, and a lot of our other programs like water use the federal definition of 500 or fewer employees. However, they're defined, they are a significant segment of the employers in Pennsylvania. And just to show, I have some statistics about small businesses in PA. So we have 1.1 million small businesses in Pennsylvania. Small businesses employ 2.5 million people. It's 46.3% of the private labor force, and 99.6% of the state employers are small businesses. So that's a really significant impact on the business environment in Pennsylvania. Over the last several years, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has dedicated itself to incorporating the concepts of diversity, equity, and inclusion across all aspects of state government. I just want to share with you a few statistics demonstrating the diverse world of small businesses in PA. So women made up 48.2% of workers and owned 39.4% of businesses. Veterans made up 4.9% of workers and 6.3% of business. And racial minorities made up 16.6% of workers and owned 12.1% of businesses. As part of this commitment to DEI, the department is working on resources to make grant program documents and the online application system accessible in languages other than English. And if you'd like, you can reach out to me after this presentation to discuss specific foreign language needs relating to any of the funding programs or any other interaction with DEP. So I head the Small Business Ombudsman's Office, which is part of a three-part group that makes up the state's Small Business Environmental Assistance Program. The three parts include the Small Business Ombudsman, the Small Business Compliance Advisory Committee, which Rebecca mentioned earlier, and the Small Business Environmental Assistance Program, which for us, we're contracted with EMAP, who you will hear from the second part of this webinar today. And for the SBO, which is Small Business Ombudsman, there's a range of responsibilities, some of which include technical compliance assistance and administering small business funding programs. So the SBO serves three main roles, which include the following. The first is to advocate. So the SBO is an advocate for small businesses during the rulemaking process through participation on the SBCAC, which is the committee. More information on the SBCAC can be found at the link in the slide. The second task is to connect. So the SBO connects small businesses to resources. That does include grants and loans, or it can also include connections to other DEP program staff. So if you're having an issue trying to get a hold of someone in a certain area, or you don't have a name, you just have a general number, I can help you get in touch with the right people. The third aspect is to serve. So the SBO provides confidential assistance in resolving conflicts with DEP. I do want to note that the SBO does not have the authority to override department decisions on compliance with statutory or permitting requirements. So my job is not to necessarily overrule the decision the DEP has made. It's to help advocate an equitable approach so that, if you have concerns and you don't feel like they're being heard, that to make sure that your concerns are heard, and to see if that changes your interaction with DEP. Because again, the goal is to resolve any issues, not to prolong them. So I can provide confidential assistance in mediating any issues between one of our residents and the DEP. So some examples of service would include determining the cause of a delay in a permit approval, or mediating between a small business and inspection staff. So things like that. So you can reach out to me, and if it's within my realm, I'll definitely try to help you out. Okay, so the SBO office also provides information on energy efficiency and pollution prevention opportunities, including potential funding sources and the benefits of taking action. So two of these programs are the Small Business Advantage Grant and the Pollution Prevention Assistance Account Loan, which I'm going to discuss in detail on the following slides. I'm also going to discuss a few more other funding programs that are not operated out of my office, but are operated by DEP. So for Pennsylvania-based small business, so the first one's the Small Business Advantage Grant. A lot of people have heard about that. It's been around for, I believe we're in our 19th year. So this program has been around for a while. It's for Pennsylvania-based small businesses with 100 or fewer full-time equivalent employees. And that does include all businesses under common management or ownership. So if you own two companies, or you're a partial owner of one, you're full owner of the other, you would have to count all the employees under both companies to see if you qualify. For this grant, the project must save the business $500, at least $500, and 20% annually in energy or pollution prevention related expenses. This can include utility savings or expenses such as eliminated disposal costs or reduced fuel use, more specifically to this sector. The estimated opening date for the next round is late September, which we are there. We were trying to push it for tomorrow, but it looks like it might be closer to the end of the week, but it will open this week for funding. So this audience is most likely interested in the trucking related projects, which include idle reduction projects or aerodynamic improvement projects that will save fuel for operators. There is also potential for upgrades to your facilities under this grant, so keep that in mind as well. So the grant funds reimbursement of eligible expenses. So for this grant program, you would be awarded a contract, you would complete your project, pay everyone in full, and then apply for reimbursement of eligible expenses. We only cover equipment. We do not cover labor or installation. The maximum grant award for any project type will be the lesser of 50,000 or 50% or 5,000, not 50,000. Sorry, guys. Or the lesser of 80% or 8,000, depending on the attributes of the project. So we are giving bump ups this year for projects that are located in environmental justice areas and projects that have significant environmental impact, which would be 20 tons of CO2e based on the grant calculator. We have an online application process, so there's no paper application. This grant's great for projects that can be completed in a few months. Grants are awarded on a first come, first served basis. So once we're out of money, we're out of money. So you want to act quickly once it opens. I do want to add a reminder that there is a general application checklist in the program guidelines that will help you gather all the documents and information you need before applying, as well as a project type checklist that provides you with the information you need by project type. So you should be able to gather everything you need before you actually do the online application. And if you have everything you need, it should, I think it takes less than half an hour to actually do the online application if you have all your support ready. Okay, and as I just mentioned, this is a chart of the funding levels available this year. So depending on what attributes your project has, these would be the maximum award amounts. So if it's, say it's a $10,000 grant, you hit both the attributes, your max would be $8,000. If it's a $4,000 grant, your maximum would be like $3,000. So it depends on how much you're asking for and what attributes your project has. Okay, so I wanted to briefly cover some of the changes we've made for the 2022 Small Business Advantage Grant Program. I'm not sure if anyone has applied in the past, but we have made some changes for this year that are pretty significant. So the first is we created more specific categories for projects with individual calculators available, including one for trucks. So in prior years, any trucking projects had to use the general calculator, and sometimes that was hard to figure out. So we have made one specific to the types of projects we approve for the trucking industry, which are the idle reduction and the aerodynamic improvements. The new grant calculator instruction document provides detailed instructions by project type, so anyone can use it. You don't need a consultant to use the calculator. There is higher potential funding for projects in environmental justice areas or projects with significant environmental impacts, which I mentioned. Application checklist for individual project types. And as I mentioned earlier, resources for primary or spoken or written languages other than English. Okay, now into the eligible applicants for this grant. So it's companies with 100 or fewer full-time equivalent employees for the entire company. Businesses that are attached to residences or commercial properties with certain conditions are eligible. They don't have to be a standalone. Um, Trucking businesses and owner operators must be based in Pennsylvania, be registered as a business in Pennsylvania, and be taxed in Pennsylvania. And additionally, the truck that you're proposing the retrofit must be registered either full or apportioned in Pennsylvania and operate at least 50% of the time in Pennsylvania based on mileage or time. Okay. As far as ineligible applicants, obviously anyone not meeting any of the conditions above. And again, please refer to the program guidelines for the more detailed explanations of eligible and ineligible people, projects, etc. If there are any current or unresolved environmental violations or financial or other obligations to the Commonwealth, you're not eligible, or if it's a franchise. So applicants may submit more than one application. So if you wanted to do multiple projects, or you had more than one company that you wanted to do a project with, you can, but no one business with or businesses with ownership in common will be awarded more than the maximum grant amount for the year. So either between 5,000 and 8,000, whatever you qualify for. Once you've received that maximum amount, we will not fund additional projects. Okay, so moving to eligible projects, and again, I've streamlined this to talk about the trucking specific projects, but there are other potential project types for your industry. So eligible projects include projects to install idle reduction or aerodynamic improvement technology on medium or heavy duty trucks, so class 4 through 8. It's eligible if it reduces fuel use by reducing or eliminating main engine idling, or if the project reduces fuel by aerodynamic improvements. It must be a replacement or an upgrade of existing equipment. New equipment or new facilities are not eligible. So that might be a little confusing for trucking, but an APU would be considered an upgrade, or the aerodynamics would be considered an upgrade to your existing system. So we'll call the truck the system. We won't fund the purchase of a new truck or the add-on at the time of purchase for this equipment. So this is really to retrofit existing equipment. If the applicant is the truck owner or operator and the truck is a class 7 or 8, the applicant must provide a copy of their CDL. If the applicant's not the truck operator, they have to submit a signed letter verifying that all the potential operators have their CDL, and that's not required if the truck is a class 4 through 6. So there is further information in the program guidelines to determine whether or not businesses have ownership in common, so you can determine whether or not you can apply under multiple businesses. So more specifically with eligible projects, so the idle reduction technology must be on EPA's approved list for idle reduction technology, must be applicable to the specific truck to be eligible. And these type of projects will assist small businesses in the trucking industry with compliance with Act 124 of 2008, which is the Diesel Powered Motor Vehicle Idling Act that restricts idling of large trucks. The other type is the aerodynamic improvements, again, must be listed on EPA's approved list, applicable to the specific truck. And with these will likely need to be completed in conjunction with an idle reduction technology project, just to meet the minimum energy percentage and cost savings requirements for eligibility. Most of these don't hit the 20% on their own. They're somewhere in the 7 to 10 range. So you would want to combine those with either idle reduction technology, or you can combine it with a facility project as well, like lighting or HVAC. So as long as your total reduction hits that 20% mark, you'd be eligible to apply. As I said, other facility-oriented projects such as lighting, HVAC, boilers, refrigeration, or others may be applicable, but remember to watch for that max funding amount if you're combining projects. Okay. So this slide includes examples of potentially eligible projects. And note that projects are not limited to this list. We'll consider any project that meets the program requirements for eligibility. So feel free to be a little innovative. So some of them include APUs or generator sets, battery operated air conditioning, fuel operated heaters, thermal storage systems, or other approved anti-idling technology. As far as aerodynamic improvements, skirts, tails, gap reducers, under trailer retrofits, splash guards, or other technologies. And again, you can go on, follow those links to EPA's approved list and see what's on the list to determine what you might be interested for your project. So this is just to show you, when you go to the website, this is the section you'll be looking for. This is the section that will have all of the program documents and guidelines and forms that you need to complete, and a link to the grant calculator, etc. So if you're interested in the program, this is where you want to look for all the program documents. And it will have the 2022 documents posted once it's open. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the next program offered through the SBO office is the Pollution Prevention Assistance Account Loan. And this is a low interest loan program. It's jointly administered by DCED and DEP. We have over $1.45 million available right now as of June. The loan never closes. It is a revolving loan program, so you can apply at any point. It's meant for Pennsylvania-based small businesses with 100 or fewer FTE employees. And it's the better option for longer term projects or projects that will have stages. So if you, again, this is just a random example. If you have 10 trucks and you want to do APUs on all of them, but you want to spread it out and you want to do it over 2 years, it might make more sense for you to try to get that funding through the loan so that you can spread that over time. Again, loan funds may be used to purchase equipment or implement process changes, which will fulfill one or more of the following. So that's to reduce or reuse raw materials on site, reduce pollution or production of waste at the source, or significantly reduce energy consumption. So most of your projects are probably going to lean more towards that as far as fuel reduction. DEP and DCED anticipate businesses will pay back the loan through savings realized through reductions in the cost of raw materials, waste disposal, or energy use. So your first step in the loan process, which is a little different than the grant, your first step would be complete a determination of eligibility for approval by DEP. That's just a single form, and essentially it verifies that you're a small business, and we verify the potential energy or pollution savings for the project. Once you receive that determination of eligibility from DEP, you would need to work directly with a CETO, which is a local certified economic development organization, and they are the ones that will actually help you submit the full grant package to DCED for review and approval. The loan covers up to 75% of total eligible project costs, and it's a 2% fixed rate for the life of the loan. So the last couple of years that didn't look so attractive. Now with the way things are going, that is becoming a much more attractive option. So a 2% fixed rate for the life of the loan with a 10-year maximum and a maximum loan amount of $100,000 for any 12-month period. Again, I've just showed you what the page will actually look like when you go look. So this is the section that you want to look at. And again, this application process is a little different than a DEP run grant. So there is an explanation of the process on the website as well. Okay, so moving on to, in addition to the programs offered by the SBO office, DEP's Energy Programs Office, or EPO office, runs several financial incentive programs. I'm only going to discuss AFIG here, but you can explore their website for additional funding opportunities. So the Alternative Fuels Incentive Grant, also called AFIG, has approximately $3 million in funding available to eligible applicants, which include businesses that want to transition to cleaner fuel transportation. The second bullet lists the type of alternative fuels that are included in the program. So that's a much broader list than most people consider for alternative fuels. So if you're looking to do something innovative, there is a chance there for you to find some funding. The AFIG program funds the incremental cost related to retrofitting vehicles to operate on alternative fuels, the incremental cost to purchase alternative fuel vehicles, the cost to purchase and install fleet refueling or home refueling equipment for alternative fuel vehicles, and the cost to perform research, training, development, and demonstration of new applications or next phase technology. So there are, this one is open year round accepting applications, but there are 2 cutoff dates when they gather what's been submitted and review. So the first deadline for this year was August 26th, so that has passed. The next deadline will be December 16th of 2022 is the second deadline for this program. And this is another one that's funded annually, so you can just keep an eye out for when it opens in the springtime if you miss the December application period. Excuse me. So DEP's Bureau of Air Quality also offers funding under numerous programs. I've provided a direct link in the full website in case the link doesn't work. Again, so there are these are multiple grant programs funded by settlement money that was received by Volkswagen or from Volkswagen a few years ago relating to an emissions cheating scandal. So the state got over $100 million to distribute in grant funding. So I wanted to mention 3 of the programs. There are other programs as well, but 3 that might be of interest to this crowd. So the on-road rebate program is the first. It provides rebates or rebate vouchers for projects that replace or repower 5 or fewer vehicles, which are class 4 through 8 trucks, port drayage trucks, school buses, shuttle buses, and or transit buses. And they can mix and match if that's necessary. So the way that works is you'd be approved for a rebate voucher to hold a certain amount of money based on your proposal. Once your project's complete and paid for, you would submit for a reimbursement of the rebate amount, and that's when you would get your funding. And these programs do require your old vehicle to be scrapped. I believe under AFIG that is not a requirement. So the different programs have different requirements as far as what you do with your old equipment. Okay, so the truck and bus grant program is a competitive grant program to replace or repower fleets of 6 or more class 4 through 8 trucks. So the rebate is for 5 or fewer. The grant is for 6 or more of the same types of trucks. And again, the next round opening is to be determined. So you want to keep an eye on the Driving PA Forward website. The last one I wanted to mention is the DARE program. DARE is a little different than the other programs in that it funds a wide variety of diesel emission reduction projects, has different reimbursement amounts, and has varying requirements relating to scrappage of old vehicles and equipment. So that one you would want to make sure that you look at those requirements carefully because they do differ from the other 2 Driving PA Forward programs. Okay, and finally, in addition to the SBO, the air quality, and the EPO offerings, there are a number of grant loan programs offered by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection for environmental improvement projects. Again, I've provided a direct link to our grants and loan page. And on this page, the programs are sorted by applicant type to make it easier to search. For example, they have residential, school, business. It also provides a list of programs that are currently accepting applications. So that's kind of a one-stop shop to see what's open as far as what you can apply for through DEC or through DEP. And this completes my overview of the Small Business Ombudsman's Office and some of the funding programs available through the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. This slide has my contact information if you wish to contact me about anything I've spoken about today. And I believe we'll probably hold questions until the end of the webinar. So thank you for your time, and I will turn it back over to Rebecca.
Thank you, Samantha. Really appreciate it. I did forget to mention at the beginning that if anyone has questions, please feel free to type them in the chat as we go, and we'll come back to them. And if we have time at the end, I will open it up so that you can raise your hand to actually ask a question of our guests. So I want to turn it over to Jeremy now with our EMAP program.
Thanks, Rebecca, and thank you, Samantha. Yeah, we're excited to talk a little bit about EMAP. I was excited when Rebecca reached out to Samantha and myself to talk to you about EMAP services and you know, some of the common environmental compliance stuff that you may encounter. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, because this webinar overview is talking about cutting the red tape, is the regulatory compliance costs for small businesses in general. So there were some studies done back in 2008, and I think there was a one that was done around 2010 or 2012. But essentially, if you take a look at this table here, you can take a look at, this is on the federal side of things with federal regulations. You can see just the disproportionate amount of costs that small businesses or small firms with either less than 20 or less than 500 employees typically pay for to comply with various federal regulations. So obviously we're talking about environmental issues here. So I don't know if my mouse pointer is working, but in the environmental category, you can see that, with a firm over 500 employees, and again, this is back in 2008, or sorry, 2010. So if you can imagine, with even inflation, these costs are probably greater, but those firms with 500 or greater would typically pay $883. So with the environmental, could range from anywhere from $1,300 to over $4,000. So yeah, there's a reason why there's all of these programs available to you. It's because the small businesses are the heart of the economy. Employ a lot of full-time jobs, part-time equivalent jobs, and so forth. You're the ones that are creating jobs and kind of getting the economy going. So as Samantha mentioned, they're to kind of capture that previous table and this issue with complying with environmental regulations. The 1990 Clean Air Act amendments, or Section 507, again, it basically said there's got to be three parts to help small businesses comply with air quality issues, because air quality is typically a more trickier, complex thing for people to wrap their heads around. In terms of the environmental, field, if there's waste issues, if there's water issues, they're typically easier to kind of for people to think about or to understand, because you can actually see some waste or see the actual wastewater or so forth. With air, it's difficult to quantify air emissions and really kind of comply with some of the again, the federal or the state standards. So here in Pennsylvania, we are one of the few states in the country that have all three of the parts of the 507 program. So we are considered a leader in that, and we're all proud. Myself, Samantha, and Rebecca, we all serve on the Small Business Compliance Advisory Committee. We typically meet on a quarterly basis. We're able to, when I give a report on EMAP, I kind of report out as to what's going on in the small business circles in terms of environmental compliance. Samantha, she typically gives overviews of what's going on, as she just presented to you, with various grants and other kind of rebates and low interest loans. But EMAP, we take care of this SB for the Small Business Environmental Assistance Program. So again, what we typically do is we're a free and confidential source to all Pennsylvania small businesses in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We're pretty proud. We have a pretty lengthy history. So the typical kinds of services that we offer, again, free of charge. We operate a confidential environmental hotline. If you can see in the bottom right of the slide, I think it's on all the slides, is our Ask EMAP hotline, which is 877 Ask EMAP. We typically take calls from small business owners, excuse me, from out of state businesses that are looking to establish operations in Pennsylvania. Every now and then we get calls from concerned homeowners or other kind of issues. So it kind of keeps us busy, and it kind of keeps us on our toes to answer a lot of these hotline questions. Again, all of our services are confidential, so we understand that a lot of businesses don't want to necessarily talk to the regulatory authorities, so we kind of act as that kind of entity to help you or help the small businesses identify and understand the regulations, whether it's state, local, or federal. We again, because of the Section 507 of the Clean Air Act, EMAP, we predominantly work in the area of air quality. So we help small businesses put together various permit applications, forms, and plans. We do, I'll get into a little bit, but we do offer multimedia assistance, so we can kind of help businesses with other kind of media related permit applications or other kind of regulatory requirements. We can act as a liaison to Pennsylvania DEP, to EPA. Sometimes there's, well, I guess in the city of Philadelphia and in the city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, there is Allegheny County Health Department, ACHD, and then of course in Philadelphia there's the Air Management Services that kind of regulate the air quality regulations there. So again, if if somebody would be working with EMAP and we needed to talk to a particular rule writer or a permitting person or an inspector, we can kind of go ahead and do that for small businesses. We also do on-site assessments, and that's talking about that shortly, but that's a way for us to actually get out in the field and actually take a look at a small business facility, and whether it's reactionary or kind of typically people ask us to come out and they just want to have somebody look at their facility and their operations, so we can look at compliance issues that people may have not thought about or saw, cost saving opportunities or other kind of energy efficiency or pollution prevention opportunities there. A lot of small businesses, again, we're very well aware of a lot of the grants and rebate programs that Pennsylvania DEP offers, but we are a part of the Small Business Development Center network. So there are other opportunities available through SBA or DCED. And I apologize for all the acronyms. So Small Business Administration, Department of Community and Economic Development, USDA, so forth and so forth. There's a lot of opportunities for small businesses. And again, we kind of hear a lot about a lot of these programs, and we can kind of forward those along or provide information on those. And again, we've been around for a while, so we've partnered and networked with a lot of other kind of small business assistance providers in the state. So if EMAP can't fulfill a particular need, we will refer a small business to a more appropriate assistance provider. So a little bit about our background. EMAP was established back in 1997, and there was one of our old directors then. He received a couple of small pilot grants from US EPA. Again, EMAP was established in the Small Business Development Center. It was a very successful pilot program. In spring of 2000, it was then Governor Ridge. He decided to make a more significant investment in SBDC for expanding EMAP. So we were able to add more, more staff and other kind of services. In 2004, we partnered with Pennsylvania DEP. So EMAP became the go-to assistance provider, small business assistance provider. That's when we added the toll-free environmental hotline, and we added some additional consulting services. And then again, we're a program subject to the economy. We've taken some bumps in the Great Recession. So we've had a cutback in staff over the years, but in present day, we have EMAP services available statewide, and we have consultants located at the University of Pittsburgh, at Shippensburg University, and at Widener University is where I am located at. Excuse me. So why the SBDCs? Well, EMAP, we provide services through the entire SBDC network. There's 15 locations. The SBDCs deal with all types of small business types, manufacturers, retailers, people with innovative technologies, other kind of service providers. We're able to assist, or the SBDCs are able to assist in all types of business development, whether it be pre-venture, startup, mature businesses, those that are looking to expand or purchase new facilities. There's all types of environmental concerns or ideas or things to think about. So it's kind of good that we're able to point people in the right direction when it comes in terms of environmental issues. And SBDCs, again, they have the trust of the small businesses. The SBDCs, they'll help businesses with business plans, applying for bank loans as well. So there's a whole confidentiality aspect. And again, with EMAP being free and confidential, it's kind of a perfect fit for us. So here's just a quick location of where the SBDC locations are at. Again, I mentioned there's 15 of them. You can find this at pasbdc.org. So again, we have EMAP consultants strategically located throughout the different parts of the state, so we can work with all the small businesses. And then here's just again another slide. I think if Rebecca forwards you a copy of this PowerPoint along with Samantha's, you'll have all the various contact information for the local SBDCs in your part of the state. So I won't touch too much on this because you already heard about this, but what's a small business? Again, EMAP, we understand there's a Pennsylvania state definition of 100 employees or less. Because we're part of the SBDC network, and the SBDCs do get funding through SBA, we are able to also work with businesses that fit under the SBA definition. I guess the important thing is to really think about the NAICS code, or the North American Industrial Classification System, which goes by number of employees and annual revenue. To add one more little layer of complexity because of Section 507, to work for us, for EMAP to work with a small business, it cannot be a major source of air pollutants or a Title V facility. It has to be considered an area source, or a smaller source of air quality emissions. So I actually just put this slide together when Samantha was going, because I didn't realize we were going to be repeating some of the same information, but I pulled this from SBA's definition. I have a hyperlink at the bottom. It's the SBA table of size standards. And again, this is kind of an SBA definition. I think this is probably what would fit most, or if not all of you. But this would go by the NAICS code for general trucking by the classification system. And you can see here that the SBA defines a small business probably for your industry as the size standard in terms of annual revenue for millions of dollars. So about $30 million, $38 million a year. Again, this might not fit all of your activities, but again, you could probably click on that link to see if you qualify as a small business in terms of the federal or SBA. So what are the typical types of businesses that EMAP works with? We work with all types of manufacturers. They're typically making processes. They're typically using solvents or paints. They have boilers. They have diesel engines, et cetera, et cetera. Dry cleaners. I think we just got a request from a dry cleaner just today. I won't go on and on. I'll talk about some of the equipment, such as dust collectors or bag houses. Sometimes there are printing machines or solvent cleaning. Again, painting booths and coating removal could subject a small business to being subject to environmental requirements or regulations. So I thought a little bit about, again, what might be more specific to all of you. Besides, obviously, in the trucking, I don't know if you have facilities at your home base, or if you do any of these type of processes or operations. But I just wanted to kind of, bring these up as kind of, these might be environmental issues that may require some regulations, or at least maybe have you take a second look at, or look at it a little closely to see if any kind of compliance issues arise. So I guess the first would be any kind of diesel engines or a backup generator. As you know, Pennsylvania can be prone to flooding at various times. Again, with a lot of these hurricanes that are coming up the coast, people have backup generators that are diesel fired, and there's certain federal standards and even state requirements as well. I mentioned painting or surface coating, any kind of touch up for maybe your for your trucks or other kind of parts. Whenever there's paints involved, there's typically VOCs or volatile organic compounds or hazardous air pollutants or HAPs. There's certain thresholds for VOCs and HAPs that may be subject to state permitting requirements. There's also some federal NESHAP requirements, or national emission standards for hazardous air pollutants. A lot of times with the NESHAPs, a lot of record keeping and reporting requirements. So something else to think of. And typically when businesses are painting, they're typically using solvent usage, possibly to add to their paints or for cleaning operations. And again, if people are trying to strip paint, sometimes they use shot or sandblasting to kind of, get a large part and remove the paint and stuff like that. So with shot and sandblasting, it's more of an issue with particulate matter, or, fine dust or something along those lines. There's standards there. There's a potential if you have a fueling station at your site. If you're using diesel or gasoline. There's a recent requirement that we just heard about at the Small Business Compliance Advisory Committee. I forget which meeting it was this year, but there's a stage 1 and stage 2 recovery vapor. So there's certain requirements for some of the fueling issues as well. I won't go into great detail about this, but I just kind of want to talk about a lot of these various things. With car washes and mobile washing operations, with like the mobile washing operations, I know probably not for your membership or for you yourself, but if you know of somebody that might be cleaning your trucks out on the road or along the turnpike or some other location, there's some kind of wastewater requirements or cleanup issues with the wastewater that's being generated, or what the kind of soaps or surfactants that are being using as well. The diesel idling, or Act 124, I'll talk about in a little bit. But again, for general vehicle maintenance, for waste fluids, or if you're changing out light bulbs or waste batteries, you want to typically think about disposal or waste issues with some of these issues. So in 2021, EMAP, we worked with we assisted 223 small businesses. And out of that number, we entered into extensive consulting engagements with approximately 108 small businesses. We did 15 on-site assessments, which was, again, kind of a low number. That was kind of coming out of COVID, again, with a lot of restrictions that were in place for the last year, two plus years. We weren't out about in the field as much. I think even this past quarter, I think the EMAP staff, I think we performed around 10 or 12 on-site assessments in the last calendar quarter. So 15 in 2021 is probably kind of a low number, but we do like to get out in the field. We provided permitting assistance 103 times. And again, with the air quality issues, we helped with requests for determinations, or RFDs. That's typically a permit application to figure out if a air quality permit application is actually required or not. A plan approval is pretty much an approval to construct a particular piece of equipment. And then again, if a facility or an operation needs an actual year-round air quality permit, it would be considered a state-only operating permit. Those are typically good for a 5-year time period. We work with businesses in 40 of the 67 total counties in the Commonwealth. So again, we like to get out. We like to get a feeling as to what's going on in different parts of the state, because again, as you know, Pennsylvania has a diversified economy, and there's different things going on in different parts. So what would happen if a small business contacts EMAP? Well, we would always just kind of have an initial conversation, whether that be via email, a phone call. We just kind of want to talk to the business owner or to you, figure out what's the issue at hand. Is it a quick question that we can kind of answer, or provide you with some information via email, or do we need to have a lengthier conversation? If that would be the case, we would ask you to become a client of EMAP, or a consulting engagement. So we would kind of have you sign up as a client of EMAP in the Pennsylvania SBDC network. It's pretty a simple form. It's kind of all SBA driven. It's called the 641 form. We would, just have you aware of our client rights and responsibilities, which is saying we're not going to trade your small business secrets or share your business plan in terms of EMAP. We're going to be a confidential source. We won't say anything to the authorities if we see anything or hear anything. Again, we'll try to get some general information from you. A lot of small businesses, they typically do get visited by a DEP inspector, sometimes EPA, and they typically get a inspection report. We try to take a look at that to get a better understanding as to what's the issue at hand. And then if an on-site assessment is needed, we can go ahead and arrange that. And then, of course, any kind of follow-up with permitting applications or research report, record keeping, and so forth. I'm going to try and keep moving a little quick because I'm looking at the time. I want to see if there's any questions. So again, I think I mentioned a lot of these. We can kind of help you comply with various types of environmental regulations per state, federal. Typically when the engagement is complete, we'll just kind of close you out via email and say, hey, we've filled our side of things, and if you need to come back for EMAP, we'd be happy to kind of open up a new client engagement. We have clients that are sometimes are longer term clients, sometimes they're a client for a week or two, sometimes for several months, because some of the permitting applications take a longer period of time to take place. So it all depends upon the situation. So just to quickly kind of get a better understanding of the environmental regulations, we always try to help the small businesses to understand what's the primary goal, and it's typically to protect human health and the environment. And a lot of other times there might be some, an additional kind of reach for what the environmental regulation is trying to do. Sometimes it can be tricky. Sometimes there's an original intent of a particular rule or regulation. Sometimes the regulation gets revised, or it gets rewritten, or there's another part that gets added into. A lot of times, sometimes we will reach out to the actual permit writer or the rule writer, excuse me, and say, hey, was small businesses supposed to be caught in this original intent, and what was supposed to be happening here? So we've done that quite a bit, and it kind of helps us understand what the the complex regulations are, so we can help you kind of understand it. There's certain trigger types that are typically based on the industry type for the NAICS code. Sometimes there's a very specific chemical that's being used. In the last year or two, several years, EPA keeps looking at their list of chemicals that are possible carcinogens. They keep adding new requirements and so forth. So again, they're kind of looking at trying to protect you or human health and the environment. I mentioned spray boost or diesel engines. Sometimes it's a very specific equipment that a rule is written for. And I talked about thresholds. So there's in particular with surface coating or with solvent usage, there's a 2.7. It's kind of a general threshold, whether you can be exempt from permitting or you would need permitting. And then there's this PTE or potential to permit, which again, if a business is using a very, very small amount of chemicals or something, or they have a small amount of air emissions, there's kind of a what if scenario or this potential to emit where if they're open year round, 365 days a year, they could be considered a larger source. And that happens often with businesses that expand when the economy is doing better. They're adding new pieces of equipment and so forth. So that could be another thing. So I'll talk about the Act 124 for the diesel idling. And here's a link. But essentially, this is a fact sheet which kind of talks about it. Hopefully, you're all aware of that. Essentially, this is supposed to be an anti-idling rule. So for a motor vehicle of over 10,000 pounds, you're supposed to comply with Act 124. I'm trying to think. So essentially, what are the requirements? Well, you can see kind of in this little section here, or in the second Q&A, you're not allowed for the engine to idle for more than 5 minutes in any kind of continuous 60-minute period. And the thing that EMAP, or we always kind of come across, is we visit an actual facility where they have trucks either at the loading docks or they're getting shipments there. And typically the facilities themselves do not have an anti-idling sign or an actual sign that's posted to inform either the truckers or whoever else is there about this requirement. So that's something to be considered. And again, if you're not aware of this, there is a whole web page, I think, dedicated to this and other kind of idling issues at Pennsylvania DEP, and we can forward that to you. So I talked about on-site assessments. I'm not sure how many of you have an actual facility, but EMAP would be more than happy to come out there or take a look if there's various opportunities to improve. We like to act as kind of a second set of eyes and ears. And again, a lot of times we come out there because there's either a neighbor complaint or an employee sometimes complains, and this can typically be noise related or for a malodor. There could be some general housekeeping issues that somebody's concerned about. And again, EMAP services are always free and confidential. So multimedia, I'll try to quickly go through here. There could be typical residual and hazardous waste issues, universal waste issues, which I think I mentioned with light bulbs or batteries. Water issues is another issue with NPDES permitting or stormwater or wastewater issues. Just emergency planning, PPC plan, spill response plan. If you have a certain amount of waste chemicals on site, there's typical things in case your facility would go up in a fire or something along those lines. Again, property issues with building retrofits, legacy contamination issues. You heard a lot about probably energy efficiency and pollution prevention projects with Samantha's overview of all the various programs. And again, there's a lot of always miscellaneous kind of environmental issues with dealing with complaints or storage tanks. So I'm kind of wrapping up here. We are proud that EMAP has kind of a history of getting some awards, but we're especially proud of this one. This past year, actually this past May, we were recognized by our peers by the National Small Business Environmental Assistance Program, that network. So we got recognized by our peers, in other parts of the states that have very similar programs such as EMAP or Small Business Ombudsman's Office, et cetera, et cetera. And we were nominated, and we were happy to get that. So it was a nice little kind of kudos to the program. But more importantly, I actually take more pride in some of our small business clients that were also recognized by the national SBEEPs. So I think maybe in like the last 4 or 5 years or 4 or 6 years, we've had a number of these clients that were recognized for a Small Business Environmental Stewardship Award. If you can see in the bottom left, that's a company, PickRight. What's kind of cool about them is they were actually not only a national SBEEP Environmental Stewardship Award winner, they were also the SBA Small Business Person of the Year. And then one of my individual clients is Tim Dodge up in the upper right with Dent Design Hardware. He's been great vocal advocate for EMAP and has been dealing with some DEP issues for quite a bit. But I'm kind of proud because each one of them has their kind of unique story and kind of how they had to overcome some type of hurdle or some type of environmental initiative that they took upon their plan, which really reflected back on the good work that they did. So we take a great pride in doing that. We sent out some client surveys, not only with the SBDC, but EMAP. And, we're also, we're pretty proud of the feedback that we get. So I won't necessarily talk about this, but, we love hearing that people some people don't really hear about EMAP services. So again, I thank Rebecca for letting me talk to all of you. And, typically when they go to EMAP, they're happy. So we're happy. So here's just a list of my information and my team's information. I won't really talk about that, but you can feel free to reach out to myself or call the EMAP hotline. We have the askemap.org, we have our website, so we always post as much relevant and new information that we can on there. So I'll end there because I'd like to hear if there's any questions or provide any other information to any other of the topics that we talked about.
Thank you, Jeremy. That was great. Thanks to both of you. It's quite a lot of information to share. But like you said, some folks aren't aware of a lot of the resources that are available. So that's what we wanted to do today, is just talk about some of those resources that are available to small businesses. Do we have any questions? I don't see any in the chat. If anyone has anything they want to ask, you can also raise your hand and we'll give you the ability to talk. Just want to give it a minute here. See if anyone thinks of a question.
I just want to do a quick follow-up. Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, I actually used to be the contact for Act 124 at DEP. So if there are questions about that, I was significantly immersed in the enforcement of that particular regulation. So yeah, the idling. So if you have questions about exemptions or anything, I mean, feel free to call air quality staff, but I do have personal experience with that particular regulation.
That's good to know. Thank you for offering that.
Yeah. Yes, I was the voice on the other end of all the complaint calls. So feel free to reach out on that or anything else we talked about, obviously.
Okay.
But no, I think this was a really good opportunity to get information about our programs, about our resources. And again, we are here to help with compliance. We are not enforcement folks. We are definitely here to, make your experience with DEP or environmental compliance more generally as positive as possible, so that you can see the benefits and that the state can see the benefits.
Great, thank you. I don't see any questions, so I'll just thank everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And the webinar and the presentations will be posted on our member website, so you will be able to access them. And Samantha and Jeremy's contact information will be there. But if you have any questions in the interim, I'm happy to connect you with either of their programs or with them personally. So thank you everyone for joining us, and be sure and check out our calendar. We have lots of great events coming up on our website. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.